internet every day. But as we send an email, how does it speed over from North America over to Asia so fast? Believe it or not, this whole entire world is tethered with cables, from the land to the ocean to anywhere. This is the World Wide Web. Let's get gnarly. With the underground sea cable, there is the fear that sharks might disconnect the whole internet to the whole nation or to a specific country. In one country, this had happened where a shark actually chewed through the underground sea cable where there was all of those fibers. Google's trying to prevent this by just adding another shield onto their cable to like shark-proof it. If you don't know yet, an underground sea cable is basically what it's called, an underground sea cable in the ground. But it's not like a thin sea cable, like it's huge with tons of protection to protect it from sharks and from this to be happening. But oftentimes, because sharks sometimes just chew on it for like even a whole day or sometimes a whole week, they can actually disconnect it from just chewing through all of the protection layers. But Google is trying to add more of like steel or like some type of hard metal. So then when the shark is actually chewing through it, it's not actually like eating to the cables. It's just like a doggy chewy toy that's available for the shark, but the shark really shouldn't really play on it because we're playing games from one side of the world to the other. Just like how there's lag for Hypixel for Australia to U.S. I don't know. I forgot if it's Australia or not. Another problem with underground sea cables with the fear of it disconnecting a whole countryside or a whole country is that the boat anchors might actually grapple. Yes, grapple. That the boat anchors might actually grapple the underground sea cable, which means that when they're ready to take off and they're ready to lift up the boat anchor, that means it can pull out the whole entire underground sea cable and possibly snap a glass fiber line, which is extremely delicate for fiber internet, especially if you are around your neighborhood. So with 811 being out loud in many neighborhoods, especially in the U.S., and new fiber lines, you have to really call 811 because if you break one of those fiber lines, it might disconnect your whole entire neighborhood, and you don't want that to happen because everybody is on the internet and there's like literally no alternative except that cell tower that you would have anywhere that's nearby your house. If you're in the countryside, you probably have those like teeny tiny cell tower repeaters, but eventually that's what would typically happen if the underground sea cable gets disconnected, and if it happens to both sides of the world, which will become even worse than it is. But if you don't also know is that most of the US, we have internet, but there's like these portions of the US where they can't really repeat signal for internet, and they have to get satellite internet, and also the rest of the world. It's not just the US, especially around British Columbia and somewhere in Canada, but literally anywhere. You could have internet cut off from the underground sea cable because a boat anchor or a shark ate it, or something just damaged the underground sea cable, which would not be great. The first sea cable was planted from Newfoundland to Ireland in the year of 1854, if you did not know about that, as a quick fun fact. So they just did that probably because of the Newfoundland, or either for beta testing. It's probably both, but who knows. Like, that's when the first underground sea cable was added and planted into the ground in 1854 around the seabed. Now there is that curiosity with the underground sea cable that once it's on the ground, does it move with the current of the sea waves or water or anything like that? The answer is actually no, because as it's being trailed across, or just like that thing if you've been to an airport, it actually gets taxied for hours on end. So as the boat keeps on going across, the underground sea cable reaches the sea floor. But as it is there in the sea floor, there's like another taxi. Yeah, I will just call it that for now. There's another taxi that goes behind the boat. As it goes behind the boat, it actually lays down the cable and possibly anchors it too. So even though there's a boat anchor, if it's not anchored correctly, then it could pull the underground sea cable. But oftentimes that's usually rare, and for shark bites, it's typically rare. Now, it's not buried in the actual sea. If you don't know what sea means, it means the actual ocean. It's actually just floating a tiny bit above the ocean floor. As it continues above the ocean floor, they're not even little staples. They're actually really huge. Now, it's still the sea to land connection, just like what you might be wondering from the first sea cable. How do they typically do it? Well, it just repeats towards the rest of the countries when they connect it. Now, there also is a map on, I'll just include a resource in the description where you can see all of the underground sea cables across the globe. It's literally anywhere. Even if you're doing an international flight, you're probably above the underground sea cable, because if the plane crashes, then you got internet right down below you. Because they sometimes even actually put a box, a signal box check thing. I don't know what it is. But once they reach land, you have to put these buoys on the underground sea cable. As they put the buoys on the underground sea cable and they reach it towards the land, they have to just do it like an airport. They have to taxi the underground sea cable into the land, because they have to actually dig a huge, not really huge, it's actually a small hole beside of the island entry or the land entry where it's really hard and rocky. Then they have to add it in. There's only 2 of those typically. If possible to add 5, then they would add 5, but it'll take more than 1 day. So as they go in, then they have divers who would get the underground sea cable and they would continue along connecting it to the connection on the land. While on the mainland, once it's all done, the divers approve of everything and all that, then they would be sending us a signal to make sure that it could speedrun from the side that they just went to deliver it, can reach the side where they just started and connected it originally. Now, there could be issues like that it got cut off or it got pulled too much and they didn't even know about it. If the underground sea cable broke during the installation or didn't follow the mainland test signal and isn't being received on the other side or on the repeater checks, then the divers, their entire crew, would have to find where it broke. That's a long process. And it's also possible that they might have to actually redo the whole trip of the underground sea cable just to reconnect it. One country almost went 3 to 1 month without internet because of the underground sea cable. Now, it's not really because of a shark, it's mostly because of a boat anchor sort of thing. But if you hadn't not known yet that this whole world is connected by underground sea cable, now you know. I'm Reagan from ReaganVFilms Tech, and this is the World Wide Web. And there will be an episode 2 and more episodes coming up this September.